one thing that is the positive of this, yes, this has been dark for a long period of time, a good 6 months since October, since the Benn Eubank fight fell off the back of 2 failed positive drug tests as per voluntary anti-doping. And it's been a dark 6 months. It's been a very difficult 6 months. Boxing has been dragged through the mud over that 6 month period. But one thing that we can say positively this week is that a process has begun. And it is a process that has been proven to work in the past. Yes, it's a process that goes on too long, as per the Amir Khan situation, which took 14 months from start to finish. Granted, all fight fans are frustrated with that. I'm frustrated with that. I know Gareth is as well, that is too long of a period to go from start to finish to come to some type of conclusion with a failed drug test. But the process proves to work. You get a failed test. You then get, obviously, a situation from UK anti-doping where they charge a fighter. The fighter has a right to response in order to defend themselves, to provide whatever information they need in order to try and either get off any type of ban or reduce the ban that is coming their way, and then off the back of that, then you get the penance that is served. So that process does work, and that is the process that has now begun, albeit publicly, granted, and we'll talk about that in a minute, as you've just been hearing from our lawyer friend a moment or two ago. But that process has been good, and that's a good thing, because we needed movement, and we need a conclusion of this for us all to be able to move forward.
Yeah, well, as Stephen Taylor-Heath, the head of sports law at JMW Solicitors, explained, and it's great that we've got someone with that kind of knowledge about UKAD, UK anti-doping's regulations, Adam, and is able to talk on this case, because the situation as we have it now is, at least it's all out in the open. The fact that Conor Benn made a statement this week allowed UKAD to comment extraordinarily, that, as he explained, the clause in their regulations that allows them to respond if something is which is private is spoken about in public, they can then respond. We now know, and the best thing has happened, that 270-page report that was first presented to the WBC, the World Boxing Council, in December, is now in front of UKAD, UK Anti-Doping, and that they have provisionally suspended him. We got that information last week. That was on March the 15th, and that he has been charged as such. That doesn't mean that he is banned, but it means that the case is ongoing. And as Stephen explained, there is a prosecutor, which is UKAD. There's an independent tribunal through Sports Resolution. His lawyers, we believe Mike Morgan, his lawyers will defend Conor, and they will try and find a way through this. There is strict liability in this. Twice clomiphene was in his system, and we are now moving forward in the right way. These kind of, what for us were ethically and morally wrong, we don't want anyone to face restraint of trade, but as Spencer just pointed out, Spencer's had a brain hemorrhage. It's a very, very dangerous sport. 25 years ago, we nearly lost Spencer. It's an inherently dangerous sport. Your body is your weapon, so that there needs to be a testing system that has true veracity, and you cannot... If there are problems with the testing system, and it was wrong, then let's have it heard. And if he is right, and he is innocent, as he's claimed, then he gets off. And if he doesn't, he's probably wasted 6 months where they could have come forward, and he hasn't talked about a witch hunt, or... There's no witch hunt. There isn't a witch hunt. No. I don't believe there is. There isn't.
It's nonsense.
I've spoken privately to Robert Smith, and he wishes the best for Conor Benn. We all do.
Everybody does.
He's such a likeable young man. I still like him, or I love him as much as I did before he slapped the microphone out of me 2 or 3 weeks ago when we were on the live broadcast. I understand emotion. I'm empathetic to the fighters that I love and respect and who've sustained a career. Without the fighters, we have nothing. We're not sitting here. So the fact that he wants to clear his name, the fact that this is moving ahead in the right direction, the fact that Eddie Hearn is probably concerned about his position, Chris Eubank Jr. was concerned about his position, because they couldn't just push on with a fight in Abu Dhabi and ignore clomiphene being in his system twice. If it wasn't in his system twice, and it was a mistake, as he's claiming, with the VADA testing process, that is the WADA lab at the end of the day. That's the World Anti-Doping Agency. The standard bearers for the biggest tournaments in the world, let's be honest, then, it's a bigger story than just Conor Benn. That's the key to this.
I personally believe there's been a complete lack of ownership of the whole situation from both Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn. I think that during the period of time where they both tried to proceed with a fight on October the 8th with Chris Eubank Jr., I thought the behaviours in that time were absolutely abhorrent and dragged boxing through the mud.
It was very depressing, that 30 hours where it was carried. I just couldn't believe it. I didn't know where I was going to look on Saturday night. I think we were doing a live broadcast from there, weren't we? Were we I can't remember. But I know I was going to be there that night.
Yeah.
I think on Tuesday and the Wednesday I was thinking, how am I going to morally cover this?
Yeah. And I think, like I said, the behaviours during that particular time, I completely don't agree with. And I have nothing personal against either of those gentlemen. Absolutely nothing personal against them at all. I just think that their behaviours brought boxing into disrepute. And the 6-month period since then, it's been a lot of blame culture. It's been a lot of pointing over here and pointing over there. And what about this person? What about this person? No, we've got to take ownership for ourselves. Take ownership for yourself at the situation. The fact is this. Conor Benn failed 2 voluntary anti-doping tests. That's on him. That's on him. Nobody else. It's on him. He failed 2 voluntary anti-doping tests. Now, this is the situation that he currently faces because this process with UK anti-doping has begun. So he now has a situation where he is adamant that there is a flaw in the testing process. If you remember his Piers Morgan conversation, he started talking about manufacturing, manipulating and concealing evidence. So that is his angle. He believes that there is a flaw in the testing process. He has to prove that not once, but he has to prove it twice. This is why we're in an unprecedented situation, because we're not talking about 1 test, we're talking about 2 tests that he has to prove that were both flawed. If he can do that, there is a real good chance that he will get away without any ban whatsoever. And then the whole conversation then is about VADA, the WBC Clean Boxing Program. It's a whole bigger conversation. It's even Conor Benn could unveil something here that is absolutely huge, really huge. And maybe that is going to be the case in the future. But that is his process. And the reason why I keep stressing that he has to do that on not 1 but 2 separate occasions is because if you remember, the WBC, their hearing for Conor Benn to reinstate him in their rankings was based on the first test. They've never looked at the second test. They've only looked at the first test. And they used that test there. Conor Benn used this manufacturing, manipulating and concealing evidence, reasoning with his 270-page document. The WBC said, no, that is not the reason that you have failed these tests. We believe that it is something to do with eggs. Large consumption of eggs is what the reason that they give to Conor Benn. Now, firstly, my question is, why are the WBC giving him the reason as to why he has failed the test? That is for Conor Benn to do, not for the WBC. So that's a massive alarm bell for me as to why they've done that. And then the second thing is, Conor Benn, remember at that time, disowned that reason. He said, no, it's nothing to do with eggs. It's about the flaw in the testing process. So therefore, he has now got a problem. If he can't prove that there's a flaw in the testing process, he has got a problem with strict liability.
Yeah, he's stuck in a corner.
Accidental ingestion, because that's what strict liability is. Whether you do something on purpose or accidentally, it is your responsibility as to why it is in your system. But he has already, during this 6-month process, said, it's nothing to do with eggs. I haven't accidentally ingested these eggs.
Well,
that's what he said. But he has disowned that. Yeah, he's disowned that angle. So what's he going to do? Come back and say, all right, then it's a supplement. Why did you not do that originally? It's a mess. There's been far too much talking publicly from his point of view on this case. It's an absolute mess from start to finish.
But there's another line there, which is if he turns gamekeeper to poacher, or poacher turned gamekeeper rather, and fingers someone who is in this process. If there is someone in the process, I'm saying allegedly, if there is, there's all kinds of possibilities. There's all kinds of if he.
But the unprecedented thing is that we're not talking about 1. He hasn't got to do this once. He has to do this twice. There's 2 tests. 2 separate tests. That's what people need to realise. He's got to prove a flaw in the testing process, not once, but twice. And if he does that, that is huge for the clean boxing programme. VADA, WBC, the whole thing gets blown up.
But as Stephen Taylor Heath kind of explained to me, I'm not sure if it was in that 8-minute clip, it was a very long, it was a 26-minute interview, I think, and I'll be speaking to Stephen in the future, the head of sports law at JMW Solicitors, that there are possibilities for him to explain it, to be exonerated, but there is also the possibility of he is going to have to face a 2-year ban, and what I feel sorry.
The minimum is 4.
Yeah,
for Clomiphene,
but if they accept that he hasn't intentionally
done
it, if they accept that he hasn't intentionally done it, and the levels in it, as they did with Amir Khan, retrospectively, of course, after he'd retired.
But Amir Khan hadn't had any conversation in this 6-month period publicly saying it's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with that over there. It can't be strict liability. It's nothing to do with that. It's because of this reason. There was none of that with Amir Khan. So Amir Khan could present strict liability as, yeah, okay, I've done this accidentally. There's your 2 years as opposed to your 4. My point is, with Conor, he has to prove it to be a test that flaw in the testing process, because his other argument, where's that other argument coming from now?
Well, he can still say that there's nothing in. They could still go through exactly the same situation with Amir Khan, which was unintentional. They could find him that it was unintentional, that it was unknowing, that he wasn't doing it to take an advantage. We don't know the details of the picograms of clomiphene that were in his system.
It's on the ban list.
I know that. But what I'm saying is, if in this if in this case, if this panel finds that he has not deliberately tried to cheat, if they find that it's unintentional, he doesn't know where it's come from, if they find reasoning within this document that he hasn't deliberately tried to cheat, but it's in his system, he may face a 2-year ban. What I'm going to say is this. If he had done this back in October...
Yeah, and that's another problem.
This is stretched on. The ban, if he gets one, or the suspension, will go from March the 15th.
Yeah, he's wasted 6 months.
He's wasted 6 months. The good thing for him is he's 26 years old, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
But that 6 months he shouldn't have wasted.
It should have been... When that test came back on September 23rd, that's when it all should have started.
And here's where I think Stephen's right as well, the lawyer is right as well, is that let's get every one of the world governing bodies, sanctioning bodies, commissions, all on the same page, so that there is no loophole here and loophole there and getting around it here. And I'm not trying to denigrate against Conor Benn or anyone here, but this is a sport which is inherently dangerous. You can be legally killed in the ring. So in the cradle of the sport we love, let's respect the fact we need a system that does not allow people to enhance their bodies that may kill someone in the ring, where we end up in, is it a criminal case in the end? You know, it's heinous to cheat when you're fighting someone. It's as simple as that.
I agree. I just thought, and this is just on the other side of this, I know that this is now public and there will be public pressure, and UKAD will feel that public pressure because we want a conclusion. Of course we do, but we want the right conclusion. And we want, even though I'm sure there's a lot of emotion running towards Conor Benn right now, you want him to have a fair hearing. You want him to be able to present his case. You want it to be heard properly, and then you want the proper jurisdiction to come down on what has been heard. And I just hope that it isn't rushed and there's a lot of care taken with it, because it is incredibly high profile and it is massive for our sport right now. What happens in this could determine what happens in years to come with these type of cases.